So in this session, first let's solve some problem using this Bernoulli's equation and head loss. This is 2006 2 marks problem. A liquid is pumped at a flow rate Q through a pipe of length L. So this, and the pressure drop of the fluid across the pipe is delta P, right? Now a leak develops at the midpoint of the length of the pipe and fluid leaks at a rate of Q by 2. So in the second situation, this is L by 2, this is L by 2, here it leaks out at a rate Q by 2, so definitely here we will have Q and this is Q. Assuming that the friction factor in the pipe remains unchanged, the new pressure drop across the pipe for the same inlet flow rate. Now see, for the first case, we can write that delta P is equal to, we know that this is Fd, L by D, V bar square by 2. So this is Fd, L by D, Q divided by pi by 4 D square, whole square by 2, and this K remains constant, diameter remains constant, only Q is changing. So delta P and L is changing for these two cases. So you can write that delta P is equal to some constant into L into this Q square. So pressure drop here we can write KLQ square, and here the pressure drop delta P prime. So over the first L by 2 we have the flow rate Q, right? Here the flow rate is Q. So K into L by 2 into Q square plus K into L by 2 into Q by 2 whole square. So it is K L by 2 1 plus 1 by 4 Q square. So it is this 5 by 4, so 5 by 8 KLQ square. So in the new situation, the pressure drop will be this 5 by 8 delta P. Option B. Right here. This 2006 2 marks question. Next up, 2004 1 mark question. Already we have solved it again. The equivalent diameter for a flow through a rectangular duct of width B and height h. So obviously we know that 4 into A divided by P. So 4 HB divided by twice of H plus B. It's equal to 2 HB divided by H plus B. Okay. Next, see, 2016, this 2 marks question. 2016, 2 marks question. What is that? The characteristic curve of a centrifugal pump. Don't get caught up by this centrifugal pump and characteristic curve. We don't have to know the meaning even. Centrifugal pump is represented by the equation. This is the head developed by the pump. That is equal to 43.8 minus 0.19 Q. Right? Where delta H pump is the head developed by the pump in meter. So it is in absolute unit, in meter. And Q is the flow rate in meter cube per hour. Right? The pump is to be used for pumping water through a horizontal pipeline. The frictional head loss delta H piping related to water flow rate. See, this head loss is related to 0.135 QL square plus 0.45 QL. The flow rate is also here in meter cube per hour. Right? So flow rate, under this situation, the flow rate rounded off to the first decimal place of water pumped through this network. See, when we apply Bernoulli's equation between these 2 points, let's say, whatever, it's horizontal, here it's horizontal, so it's like this, right? So if I apply Bernoulli, so you see 1 and 2 are atmospheric pressure, here P1 is equal to 0, gauge 0, or P1 gauge is equal to 0 kilopascal, P2 gauge is equal to 0 kilopascal. Here V1 bar on the surface of this tank 0, V2 bar is 0, right? Z1 is equal to Z2. Here the elevation is Z. So we get eta WP. What is that? Eta WP is basically the head developed by the pump, and that must be equal to the head loss. So if simply we equate delta HL to this delta H pump, we will get a quadratic equation of Q equal to 0, and solving it we can solve for Q. Okay. This is also 2016 problem. The next one. (2016) 2 marks problem. Okay, the water flows through a smooth circular tube under turbulent condition. In the viscous sublayer, the velocity linearly varies with distance. It is given from the wall. In the viscous sublayer, velocity linearly varies with the wall. The Fanning's friction factor is defined as FF is defined as tau W divided by half of rho V bar square. So here in this gate problem it is given, but actually we can establish that. So first let's prove this Fanning's friction factor for a pipe flow is equal to tau W divided by half of rho V square. See, if I think of a horizontal pipe and the liquid is flowing like this, its diameter is D and the length is L, right? Here the pressure is P1, here the pressure is P2. So at the wall shear stress, it acts like this, right? This is the wall shear stress. So from force balance, immediately we can write that P1 minus P2 into L, it's a net force in this direction, right? Sorry, P1 minus P2 into pi by 4 d square, that is a net force, is equal to tau W into pi dl, right? So delta P, this pi cancels out, d cancels out, so delta P into d by 4 is equal to tau W into F. Now what we know? We know this delta P divided by rho is equal to 4FF L by D into V bar square by 2. So if I substitute that, combining these two, 4 into rho into FF into L by D into V bar square by 2, tau W into L, so L cancels out, right? Then and here it is this delta P, sorry what happened, delta P into d by 4. So this d cancels out, 4 cancels out, so FF becomes tau W divided by half of rho V bar square. So this has been established. right? So now what is the problem statement? So it is given tau W is the shear stress at the pipe wall, rho is the density of the fluid, and here it is V bar is the average velocity of fluid in the pipe. Water flows at an average velocity. Now the question: water flows at an average velocity of 1 meter per second, right? And its rho is given 10 to the power 3 kg in the question statement per meter cube. Mu is equal to 10 to the power minus 3. This kg per meter per second. So through the pipe, for this flow condition, the friction factor, here the friction factor is obviously the Banach's friction factor, 0.005, right? At a distance y, distance means here from this pipe wall, at a distance y is equal to 0.05 millimeter from the wall of the pipe in the viscous sublayer, basically, what is the velocity? So u we have to calculate. So you see that average velocity is given, so we can calculate tau W to be equal to, here from tau W is equal to Ff into half rho V bar square. So Ff is equal to 0.005 into 0.5 into 10 to the power 3 into 1 square, that Newton per meter square we can calculate. So once you have Ff, now you see that tau W is equal to mu into du dy, right, at y is equal to 0. So tau W we have obtained, and as see close to the wall, there is a pipe wall, say there is a central line, this at wall y equal to 0, u equal to 0. At certain distance y, there will be having a velocity, and this variation is linear as specified in the question statement. So we can write that mu into u at y divided by y. So y is given as 10 to the power minus 3 meter, mu we know, tau W we have calculated, so we can solve for u1. Okay? So now let's solve another problem. This is this 2004. The problem what we are going to solve now is 2004. It's obviously a good question. 2004 2 marks problem. What is that? 3 piping network as shown in the figure are placed horizontally. They are made using identical pipe segments and are subjected to same pressure drop across them. So what are the pipe segments? These. So these are the pipe segment, and the volume flow rate here Q1, Q2 and Q3, right? Again I am reading the statement. They are made of identical pipe segment, means these are individual pipe segments, these are same or identical, right? and subjected to the same pressure drop. So here delta P, this is delta P, this is also delta P. Right. So what we have to solve? We have to solve Q1 is to Q2 is to Q3. Q1 is to Q2 is to Q3. So you see that we will use this K into L into Q square, where individual pipe segments are of length L. Right? This is Q square. So delta P is equal to KL Q1 square. Fine? Now here we will have Q2 by 2, here also Q2 by 2 and they are parallel. They are parallel to each other. So the pressure drop in these two branches will be same, right? And individual branch pressure drops will be actually the pressure drop. So delta P is equal to K into L, or rather here it will be here 2L because there are 2L this distance. Q2 by 2 whole square plus K into L Q2 by 2 whole square. So it is Q2 square by 4. So KL Q2 square by 2. And finally here it will be identical because as the liquid flows in equal division, here and here the pressure remains same. So just like what we have studied in electrical or basic electrical current electricity. So this is just Wheatstone bridge. There is no current flow in this intermediate part. So delta P is equal to KL Q3 by 2 whole square plus KL Q3 by 2 whole square. So it's equal to this KL Q3 square by 2. So Q1 is to Q2 is to Q3 is equal to, this is 2L, right? So it is only this KL, this is to the by 4 and by 4. No, this is 2L. So there will be 2 divided by 2. So Q1 will be equal to this Q1 is to Q2 is to Q3. So Q1 here is delta P divided by 2KL under root. Here Q2 will be equal to 2 delta P divided by KL under root, and here this Q3 is equal to 2 delta P divided by KL under root. So you can find out the ratio because we have expressed it in terms of this. So it will be 1 is to 2 is to 2, because if I multiply this ratio, if I multiply by root 2, so here it will be this term excluding this 2. Here we will be having this 4. Here also we will be having 4. So 1 is to 2 is to 2 will be the answer. So 1 is to 2 is to 2. Right? So these type of problems we will do it further. Right? And I will post the assignment in due time. So we will be able to solve a lot of these type of problems. So let's proceed with this understanding of Bernoulli's equation and all. So we have to now introspect the details of this turbulent flow. Right? In turbulent flow, it's complex because that not only velocity, all the quantities in turbulent flow all variables are random or stochastic with fluctuation or inbuilt fluctuation. Right. So just like we are measuring this x component of velocity, we have discussed it, and we will observe, say, one type may be like this, right, at any point. So here we can get certain averaging, and we can write this average velocity will be 1 divided by time 0 to capital T ut dt, where this time may be like this, right? So turbulent flow, see, they are inherently unstable because all components fluctuates with time, right? However, this is quite fine, so we have got a time average. So this is defined as time average quantities. However, the very definition of this time average will become invalid if there is a trend like u varies with t in this form. Right? So next, how to define the mean here? You cannot define the mean because or time average, because if I take a large time interval, it will be giving you some this value. You are losing information that actually it has got a decreasing profile over this trend, right? So here we introduce another kind of averaging technique, and that is the universal averaging technique we will go for, and that is called ensemble average. So what is this ensemble average basically? Instead of taking the time average, we will repeat the same experiment over and over, maybe n number of times. Like say this is u superscript 1, this is like this is u superscript 2, and in this way this is u superscript 10. So we can define an average as 1 by n summation of u superscript I equal to 1 to n. So this is defined as ensemble average, right? So definitely you have to understand that actually this average and this average are same if the mean quantity, the mean velocity at a specific time, right? It is not changing with time. Here what is the case? Here this 1 by t 0 to t ut dt theoretically will be same as this u superscript I by n I equal to 1 to n, which is u1, right? So this type of turbulence where the mean quantity is not changing with time, they are called stationary turbulence, right? Whereas here the mean quantity is changing with time, so it is called non-stationary turbulence. So if it is stationary turbulence, then time average and ensemble average they are same. However, in case of non-stationary turbulence, time average has got no specific significance. So henceforth, wherever I am writing there is some average quantity, we will consider it to be ensemble average because it is much more general, right? So you can understand that no matter whether it is stationary turbulence or non-stationary turbulence, at any point this velocity, instantaneous velocity, we can resolve into these two components. This we have discussed. So this is the average, or more precisely it is the ensemble average in general, and this is the fluctuating component. right? So this type of splitting the instantaneous quantity into mean and a fluctuating component, it's called the technique of Reynolds decomposition. Okay. So all quantities starting from temperature, then fundamental quantities like temperature, pressure, everything, whatever you can think of as a fundamental hydrodynamic quantity, like pressure, we can write as T bar plus T prime. Temperature we can write as T bar plus T prime, so on and so forth. All hydrodynamic variables you can express in this form. Now this fluctuation, you see, it's in the order of, for any standard system or standard turbulence, it's in the order of say 10 to the power minus 8, 10 to the power minus 9 seconds, right? So if now I want to get the turbulent velocity profile, so I'll be thinking that okay, I'll solve Navier-Stokes equation. So you see that definitely here the solution will be this numerical solution. Just like in a box where there is some inflow and there is some outflow, it's a two-dimensional flow, right? Say it is 1 centimeter and we have got the grids at 1 millimeter gap, right? So there are 10 grid points, and here also it's if it is a square, there are also 10 grid points. So grids will be looking like this, right? This. So we will write the Navier-Stokes equation and we'll discretize using the finite difference or finite element scheme, and we can get a set of this 10 into 10, that is 100 these algebraic equations which you can solve over the time interval. Now the point is, if the time over a time interval of 10 to the power minus 8 second or 9 second, let's say it is 10 to the power minus 8 second, it's changing, right? So we have to solve this 100 algebraic equation. Just to simulate this system for 1 second, you have to solve this 100 equations for 10 to the power 8 times, because the delta t is 10 to the power minus 8. So this is not at all possible except you have a mainframe computational facility, right? However, from the standpoint of engineering, we have to ask ourselves whether we are interested about the instantaneous quantities. Actually no, we are interested about the mean quantities. So if we can average the Navier-Stokes equation, right, using this Reynolds decomposition technique, and we use this Reynolds decomposition technique and average out this equation, we will get maybe an equation which is much more easier to solve, and there the delta t we can consider in the order of say 0.1 second or 0.2 second, right? So our topic here, as this instantaneous solution of Navier-Stokes equation directly, this is called direct numerical simulation. This is typically difficult even if for a small and simple geometry, right? So we will try to go for averaging this Navier-Stokes equation using this Reynolds decomposition, and the resulting equation is called Reynolds averaged Navier-Stokes equation, or RANS. So you see, we are going to understand this Reynolds averaged Navier-Stokes equation. So this is RANS, Reynolds averaged Navier-Stokes equation. Now what is the Navier-Stokes form? Here we will write the form as rho into del uy del t plus, using this summation convention we have studied in vector, then uj del uy del xj is equal to minus del p del xi plus minus of delta I3 into rho g plus mu into del square ui del xj del xj. Now what does it mean? See, a new notation using Cartesian coordinate, x2, x1, x2 are the horizontal components and x3 is the vertical, and we have the gravity as only body force, right? So delta I3, Kronecker delta, this will be 0 for axis 1 I equal to 1 and axis 2 that is I equal to 2, but for axis 3 it will be giving you a minus value because I equal to 3 and delta, we know that delta ij will be equal to 1 if I is equal to j. So once it is giving you a minus 1, we will get that a term minus of rho g for axis 3, right? So because this g is acting in the direction opposite to this of that of x3 axis. So this is my Navier-Stokes equation using this Navier-Stokes equation represented using summation convention. Right? So with this summation convention we have expressed this just to have a compact form. Now you see, here we have rho and mu, right? Now rho we know that equal to rho naught into 1 minus alpha T minus T naught, where alpha is this volume expansion coefficient of the liquid, right? So here comes the utility of an approximation. What is that approximation? That approximation, here from we are get question, Bose-Einstein approximation, which states that change of rho due to change in temperature is only to be considered in gravity term, right? So that means this rho we can consider rho naught, the mu it will be simply constant, okay? But here this rho we have to accommodate the change of rho due to change of temperature. So we can further write it as del uy del t plus uj del uy del xj is equal to minus of del p, this will be 1 by rho naught del p del xi, and here minus of delta I3 into g, rho by rho naught, and rho by rho naught is 1 minus alpha t minus t naught plus mu, or rather mu del square ui del xj del xj, where mu is equal to mu by rho naught, right? So we will go for averaging it, but before that we have to average continuity equation as well. So continuity averaged, right? So you see that we are considering here this continuity is formed as del uy del xi equal to 0, right? Del uy del xi equal to 0, okay? And in continuity actually the change of density has not been accommodated, because here again it has got negligible effect. This change of temperature led change of density, only it affects the gravity term and nowhere else. So we can write the continuity for a steady state case as, or rather it's a steady state case, it is as del uy del xi equal to 0. So you see this, if I average it out, first going for Reynolds decomposition, this we average. So what we are getting? Del uy bar del xi plus del xi of uy prime average. So this itself equal to 0 because all average quantities, as I mentioned previously, that u prime average, v prime average or any prime quantities average is equal to 0. However, just note that u prime square average not equal to 0 or u prime v prime average is not equal to 0. Right? So this is equal to 0. So we have the continuity as average continuity is form is also the same, and if I subtract, this is equation 1, this is equation 2, subtracting 1 and 2 we get that del ui prime del xi is also equal to 0. Okay? So after that, next we will go for averaging this Navier-Stokes equation, individual term. Because this average is equal to the average of this. So average, this is nothing but average of these individual terms. This and this. Right? So let's think of this. Del ui bar plus u prime del t, the average of that will be definitely del ui bar del t. Right? Because u prime average again just like the previous will be 0. Next, uj bar plus uj prime, then del xj of ui bar plus ui prime, average of that. So you see that this is uj bar into del ui bar del xj plus the next uj into uj bar into del xj of ui prime average plus here uj prime average into del xj of ui bar plus uj prime into del ui prime del xj, average of this. Right? Now you see this term ui prime average, this is 0. This is uj prime average, that's also 0. So this term and this term is remaining. So there is a new term, right? Previously this is being conserved, the same Navier-Stokes, but here whenever I am averaging I am getting a new term out of this average. So basically you see how we can further simplify. uj prime into del ui prime del xj, average of that. So you can write it as del xj ui prime uj prime minus uj prime, ui prime into del uj prime del xj. So here it is average and here this average. Now you see that this term del u prime or del uj prime del xj, this is 0 from, say it is equation 3. So this term individually is 0, so overall term is 0, right? So it reduces to this form. So we can write that uj plus uj prime, uj bar plus uj prime del xj of ui bar plus ui prime, average of that is basically equal to this term uj bar del ui bar del xj, then here is plus del xj of ui prime uj prime average. So this is the second average, right? Next you see that the term 1 by rho naught del xi p bar plus pi or p bar plus p prime average is equal to 1 by rho naught del p bar del xi. Fine. Then 1 minus alpha t bar plus t prime minus t naught, the average of that again reduces to 1 minus alpha t bar minus t naught, because t prime average is equal to 0. And the last term nu del square ui bar plus ui prime del xj, average of this quantity is nu into del square ui bar del xj. Why? As ui prime bar is equal to 0. So you have got all these different averages, and with that let's restructure the average form of this Navier-Stokes equation. So what will be that? Here we will have del ui bar del t plus this term uj bar del ui bar del xj. Now we will shift this term on the right hand side. Okay, you see this term I will shift to the right hand side. Then minus of 1 by rho naught del p bar del xi plus minus delta I3 into g 1 minus alpha t bar minus t naught. Then we had this term. So we can write that 1 by rho naught, if you take common, then del xj inside I will have mu into del u bar del xj for this term, and we have shifted this to the right hand side. So it will be minus of rho naught ui prime uj prime average, right? So this we can further simplify as this. Plus we will drop this term as well. Sorry, we will drop this term. We will write 1 by rho del xj of tau bar ij, the stress, plus the body force term delta I3 into g 1 minus alpha t bar minus t naught. So tau ij average, what it will be? P bar delta ij, right, plus mu del ui bar del xj plus del uj bar del xi minus rho ui prime uj prime average. You see that if I write the general form of the Stokes stress equation for incompressible fluid, here the fluid is incompressible, right? So Stokes stress equation, we can write it as tau ij is equal to minus of P delta ij for incompressible Newtonian fluid, plus mu into dui dxj plus del uj del xy. Why? Because if I write for xy, see tau xy, or rather this, let's write 1 2, because I is representing x1, j is representing x2. So minus P delta 1 2, obviously 0, plus mu del U1 del X2 del U2 del X1. Check just X1 is X, X2 is Y and X3 is Z. So obviously this is tau Ix equal to mu del U del Y plus del V del X. The same Stokes stress equation we have derived from this angular deformation, right? And if it is 1 1, just like tau Xx, it will be minus P, I and J are same, so 2 mu del U del X. Now remember this tau Xx from Stokes stress equation, though we have not derived it, it's minus P plus or minus P minus 2/3 mu del dot V plus 2 mu del U del X, and for incompressible flow it is 0. Right? So it exactly matches. So this is my general representation of Stokes stress equation. However, whenever we are going for average, the extra term evolves out. This, and this is called Reynolds stress. Okay, this is called the Reynolds stress. So we can represent it, we can arrange it in the form of this matrix, like we can write this tau, this an old notation, tau xx, this is average, right? Everything is average. Xy average, xz average, tau yx average, yy average, yz average, zx average, zy and zz average. This is the left hand side, and that's equal to first this P00, 0P0, 00P, right, with a minus sign. Okay, this stands for this, plus mu into this del U del X, del U del Y, del U del Z, del V del X, del V del Y, del V del Z, del W del X, del W del Y, del W del Z, plus the transpose of this. So del U del X, del V del X, del W del X, del U del Y, del V del Y, del W del Y, del U del Z, del V del Z, del W del Z. So this is the typical Newtonian stress part, and then minus we can write this minus of rho naught outside. So U prime square, U prime V prime, U prime W prime average, then V prime U prime, V prime square, V prime W prime average, W prime U prime, W prime V prime, W prime square average. So this is the general form of the average stress tensor, right? So now to understand this Reynolds stress in detail, we have to consider this Reynolds stress in detail, and for that we will focus this Reynolds stress for one dimensional, one directional flow. What will be that? Here tau Ix will be equal to mu du bar dy minus rho U prime V prime average. Okay. Tau Ix is mu into du bar dy, see, tau yx, this part non-contributing, right? V is 0, so du dy, then here u prime v prime or v prime u prime average, whatever. Okay? So this stress is the Reynolds stress. Now alternatively what we can write that this du dy we can write as EV du bar dy. So there is a new quantity called AD viscosity, right? So how we are defining it? EV into du bar dy is equal to minus of rho u prime v prime average. So Reynolds stress we are forcibly equating it to the Newton's law of viscosities format, and therefrom we are defining something called AD viscosity, right? So what you have to note that unlike this absolute or dynamic viscosity, AD viscosity not only depends on the fluid but also the type of the flow, local geometry, fluctuation, etc. So AD viscosity of a fluid flowing in a particular conduiting or particular flow area in turbulent regime, it will vary from point to point. So there will be a distribution of this AD viscosity. So with this understanding of AD viscosity and all Reynolds stress, let's go for understanding this flow profile in a pipe. So as we have discussed that in a pipe, you see, in a pipe this is the center line, this is the laminate sublayer, this is the buffer. This is the sublayer, this is buffer. So these two are laminar sublayer. This is a typical buffer layer, and here we have the turbulent core, and we fix our coordinate y from here and r from here. So y plus r is equal to capital R, and we can write y is equal to r minus capital R. So fine. So let's do it, solve this velocity profile for the laminar sublayer. Laminar sublayer. What do we have? Tau yx, this average, tau yx average is equal to mu into du bar dy minus rho into u prime v prime average. In sublayer, u prime v prime average is 0 because there is no u prime v prime, and at this surface, if I consider this is tau w, that is wall shear stress, right, at wall. So we can write that tau w just like think that this is wall, this is the laminar sublayer, ceiling of laminar sublayer. So at any point here, if I think that this is the mean velocity, which is same as that actual velocity because there is no fluctuating component, and here this will be 0 because its thickness is very small, like this. If we assume a linear flow, so at wall the shear stress is tau w. So here this du bar dy we can write as u bar y divided by y, right? So there is a new representation we are going to use here. Tau w divided by rho, under root of that we will define that this is friction velocity, right? This is called friction velocity. So if we divide both sides by rho, so this is u star square, this is nu, this is u bar divided by y. So what do you obtain? See, y into u star divided by nu is u bar divided by u star of velocity profile in the laminar sublayer in this dimensionless form, right? It is expressed in this dimensionless form. So we define this dimensionless distance y into u star divided by nu as y plus and u local divided by or u bar divided by u star as u plus, right? So in laminar sublayer we have u plus is equal to y plus, right? In turbulent velocity, theoretically, there will be no single velocity profile. The velocity relation in different layers will be different. So there will be three different equations. So u plus equal to y plus and laminar sublayer ranges from y plus less than 5 to 7 greater than 0, right? In buffer layer, we are not going to prove it, but it can be proved. And in handout, note that, okay, we'll be correcting it. U plus will be 2.5 ln of y plus plus 5, right? In handout, it is written 205, so correct it. So it is 2.5 ln of y plus plus 5. So buffer layer spans from 5 to 13, right? And in turbulent core, in turbulent core the equation will be, these are all basically these equations that can be derived through complex kind of analysis. So it was, you don't have to remember, you remember these two. In turbulent core it is it is capital U minus U bar. Capital U is the center line velocity, U bar is the velocity at y is the distance from the wall. Capital U by minus U divided by U star is equal to 2.5 ln of R by y, where R is the pipe radius, right? So this is the equation in turbulent core. So you see, to work with, in real life situation, to work with these three simultaneously, to understand a flow profile or velocity profile in a pipeline is quite difficult. So that's why we have empirical power law to represent turbulent velocity profile, right? What is the power law? U bar divided by capital U. U is the center line velocity, capital U. 1 minus small r divided by capital R to the power 1 by n, where n is this exponent. Now see, if you take the derivative of this du bar dr, right? So it will be 1 minus r divided by r, 1 by n minus 1, right? 1 by n minus 1. So wherever we are getting this 1 by n minus 1 and value of n is integer which is less than 1, and you substitute this r equal to capital R, you will see that velocity gradient becomes infinite. The velocity gradient is infinite at the wall. So overall, that's why it is empirical equation. The real equations are these are exactly correct. But in order to derive some working relation, we will be going to use this power law relation. But power law, at the same time, it will give you a singularity when you are solving for the shear stress at this pipe wall. Shear stress at the pipe wall cannot be solved using power law. So as it is empirical, so it has got its own restriction. Now, you see, but we can solve many other important parameters using power law. So just like we can solve for this average velocity, using this V bar is equal to 1 divided by pi r square 0 to r this u bar r into 2 pi r dr, that we can solve and we will get this V bar divided by U is equal to 2n square divided by n plus 1 into 2n plus 1. Similarly, we can solve this kinetic energy correction factor, which is defined as 1 divided by pi r square 0 to r, this U bar divided by V bar whole cube into 2 pi r dr. So this will be giving you a complex expression in terms of it. Once a gate question was like that, say a power law, see what is given, this equation was given this U bar divided by capital U is equal to 1 minus small r by capital N, and you are asked that find out the expression for alpha, and 4 options like F1 alpha, F1n, F2n, F3n and F4n. These 4 functions of n are given and you have to identify the correct one. So thing is that if you go by the actual solution procedure, it will be disastrous. It will be too much complicated. Right? Now, how will you solve it? Actually, we have to understand that over industrial range of Reynolds number, n, the power law exponent, can be safely the n can be replaced by 7, right? 7. So we have U bar divided by capital U is equal to 1 divided by 1 minus r divided by capital R to the power 7. So this is called 1/7 power law, right? So how to solve this problem? In this problem, in all these 4 options, we will substitute n is equal to 7 and check which one of the options is close to 1. Because we know alpha in turbulent flow is close to unity, right? So the specific option which is the closest to 1 will be my correct option. So in this all 4 expression, we will substitute n is equal to 7 and check back that which one of this functional form of n is giving me alpha close to 1. Because n is equal to 7 is a valid or is a selected value of this exponent for this industrial range of pi flow Reynolds number. So that's all about the turbulent flow. In the next session, we will continue our discussion with boundary layer theory and solve also some problems.